Bauxite is found on almost every continent, with the largest known economic resources being in Australia and the Republic of Guinea. In terms of ranking, these countries are followed by Brazil, Jamaica, and India. Although the USA, Japan, and Germany are the world's largest consumers of aluminium, they possess little or no bauxite deposits of their own. Extraction of aluminium metal takes place in three main stages: the mining of bauxite ore, refining the ore to recover alumina, and the smelting of alumina to produce aluminium. Bauxite is mined by surface methods, in which the topsoil and overburden are removed by bulldozers and scrapers. This is then usually used for revegetating the area and returning it to a sometimes better than original condition or converting it to agricultural land. The underlying bauxite is mined by front-end loaders, power shovels, or hydraulic excavators. Sometimes, the bauxite is crushed and washed to remove some of the clay and sand waste and then dried in rotary kilns. Other bauxite may just be crushed or dried. The ore is then loaded into trucks, railway cars, or onto conveyor belts and transported to refineries. In almost all commercial refineries, alumina is extracted from bauxite by the Bayer refining process. The process, devised by Carl Bayer in 1888, consists of 4 stages: digestion, clarification, precipitation, and calcination. All commercial production of aluminium from alumina is based on the Hall-Héroult smelting process, in which the aluminium and oxygen in the alumina are separated. This is done by passing an electric current through a molten solution of alumina and natural or synthetic cryolite. An inexpensive source of electricity is essential for the economic production of aluminium with this process. The aluminium industry initiated the development of technology for recycling aluminium-containing material and for setting up drink can collection centers. One of the industry's main incentives has been the reduced amount of energy it takes to produce 1 ton of secondary aluminium compared with 1 ton of primary aluminium. This involves a saving of 95% of the energy required to produce molten aluminium from bauxite. Cans are probably the most common aluminium consumer items to be recycled. The life cycle of an aluminium beverage can is just 60 days from can to can. In this short time, a beverage can goes from the grocery store shelf to the consumer, and then onto a recycling facility where it can be remelted into can sheet and reformed into another aluminium beverage can with exactly the same physical characteristics as the original can. Because aluminium can be recycled with no degradation in quality, aluminium cans are the ideal product for a closed-loop approach to recycling. In the first step of recycling, bales of aluminium cans are shredded into pieces the size of a walnut in a 1000 horsepower shredder. The shreds are then passed through a separator to remove any steel using magnetism that may have been mixed into the bale. Following the can shredding process, any lacquer or paint on the aluminium is removed by blowing hot air at around 550 degrees Celsius through the shreds on a slowly moving insulated conveyor. The exhaust gases from this process are first passed through an afterburner and are then used to heat incoming process air via a heat exchanger, minimizing the energy requirements of the system. After being decoated, the aluminium shreds are then fed into melting furnaces containing submerged stirrers that create a vortex in the pool of molten aluminium and drag the shreds quickly down into the melt. This process realizes rapid melting rates and high yields. The molten metal is then transferred into a holding furnace, where it is treated to remove impurities before casting the aluminium. Ingots are cast by tilting the holding furnace and pouring the molten metal into a casting unit. The metal is treated in a 2-stage process to remove any remaining microscopic non-metallic particles and gases, with chemical composition and metal cleanliness tested on each cast. As the metal flows into the molds, it is chilled by jets of cool water pumped around and through the base of the mold. The aluminium ingot solidifies gradually during the casting process, which takes approximately 3 hours. The finished 18-ton ingots, each containing approximately 1.5 million used cans, are shipped to a mill for rolling into the sheet from which aluminium can makers subsequently produce new cans. Then the whole process begins again.
Making documentary films. For much of the 20th century, documentary films were overshadowed by their more successful Hollywood counterparts. For a number of reasons, documentaries were frequently ignored by critics and film studies courses at universities. Firstly, the very idea of documentary film made some people suspicious. As the critic Dr. Helmut Fischer put it, documentary makers might have ambitions to tell the truth and show only facts, but there is no such thing as a non-fiction film. That's because, as soon as you record an incident on camera, you are altering its reality in a fundamental way. Secondly, even supporters of documentaries could not agree on a precise definition, which did little to improve the reputation of the genre. Lastly, there were also concerns about the ethics of filming subjects without their consent, which is a necessity in many documentary films. None of this prevented documentaries from being produced, though exactly when the process started is open to question. It is often claimed that Nanak of the North was the first documentary. Made by the American filmmaker Robert J. Flaherty in 1922, the film depicts the hard, sometimes heroic lives of Native American peoples in the Canadian Arctic. Nanak of the North is said to have set off a trend that continued through the 1920s with the films of Zyga Vertov in the Soviet Union and works by other filmmakers around the world. However, that 1922 starting point has been disputed by supporters of an earlier date. Among this group is film historian Anthony Barrick, who argues that the genre can be traced back as early as 1895, when similar films started to appear, including newsreels, scientific films and accounts of journeys of exploration. In the years following 1922, one particular style of documentary started to appear. These films adopted a serious tone while depicting the lives of actual people. Cameras were mounted on tripods and subjects rehearsed and repeated activities for the purposes of the film. British filmmaker John Grierson was an important member of this group. Grierson's career lasted nearly 40 years, beginning with Drifters, 1929, and culminating with I Remember, 1968. However, by the 1960s Grierson's style of film was being rejected by the direct cinema movement, which wanted to produce more natural and authentic films. Cameras were handheld, no additional lighting or sound was used, and the subjects did not rehearse. According to film writer Paula Murphy, the principles and methods of direct cinema brought documentaries to the attention of universities and film historians as never before. Documentaries started to be recognized as a distinct genre worthy of serious scholarly analysis. Starting in the 1980s, the widespread availability of first video and then digital cameras transformed filmmaking. The flexibility and low cost of these devices meant that anyone could now be a filmmaker. Amateurs working from home could compete with professionals in ways never possible before. The appearance of online film sharing platforms in the early 2000s only increased the new possibilities for amateur documentaries were being made. Perhaps the most popular documentary of 2006 was still the professionally made An Inconvenient Truth. New cameras and digital platforms revolutionized the making of films. But as critic Maria Fiala has pointed out, the arguments sometimes put forward that these innovations immediately transformed what the public expected to see in a documentary isn't entirely accurate. However, a new generation of documentary filmmakers then emerged, and with them came a new philosophy of the genre. These filmmakers moved away from highlighting political themes or urgent social issues. Instead, the focus moved inwards, exploring personal lives, relationships, and emotions. It could be argued that Catfish, 2010, was a perfect example of this new trend. The film chronicles the everyday lives and interactions of the social media generation and was both a commercial and critical success. Filmmaker Josh Camberwell maintains that Catfish embodies a new realization that documentaries are inherently subjective and that this should be celebrated. Says Camberwell, it is a requirement for documentary makers to express a particular viewpoint and give personal responses to the material they are recording. The popularity and variety of documentaries today is illustrated by the large number of film festivals focusing on the genre around the world. The biggest of all must be Hot Docs Festival in Canada, which over the years has showcased hundreds of documentaries from more than 50 different countries. Even older is the Hamburg International Short Film Festival. As its name suggests, Hamburg specializes in short films, but one category takes this to its limits. Entries may not exceed 3 minutes in duration. The Short and Sweet Festival is a slightly smaller event held in Utah, USA. The small size of the festival means that for first-timers this is the ideal venue to try to get some recognition for their films. Then there is the Atlanta Shorts Fest, which is a great event for a wide variety of filmmakers. Atlanta welcomes all established types of documentaries and recognizes the growing popularity of animations, with a category specifically for films of this type. These are just a few of the scores of film festivals on offer, and there are more being established every year. All in all, it has never been easier for documentary makers to get their films in front of an audience.
The Park Hill housing development. The huge Park Hill housing development in Sheffield is a brutalist masterpiece, widely praised by architects, and it has been admired by many in the media, too, since its recent redevelopment. But it has had a controversial past. Jack Lynn, one of a pair of idealistic young architects leading the project, designed Park Hill when there was a major post-war shortage of housing in the city. In December 1940, 2 nights of bombing had brought devastation to the area, destroying many of the Victorian terraced streets. The city was left with a major homelessness problem, which became even worse when the remaining Victorian housing was judged unsuitable for living in. Land was also in short supply as much of it was green belt. Being in a desperate effort to solve the problem, Sheffield City Council sent a group of experts to look at housing projects in Europe. They returned full of enthusiasm for the modernist developments they had seen. The inspiration for Jack Lynn, his colleague Ivor Smith, and the city architect Louis Wimmersley was the work of Le Corbusier, whose concrete streets in the sky were very popular in France. The idea was to replace Sheffield's slums with ultra-modern flats and facilities, recreating the communities that had flourished in the pre-war housing developments. The new development was also designed as a response to what were considered, even in the 1950s, to be modern architecture's failures: empty spaces, isolation, a lack of street life, and a middle-class "we know what's good for you" ethos. See, when the estate was formally opened in 1961, Park Hill was intended to be a perfect vision of social housing. Conceived as a town within a town, it consisted of 996 flats that would house almost 3,000 people and was equipped with every sort of public facility: shops, a doctor's surgery, dentist, clinic, nursery, school, 4 pubs, and a police station. While most tower blocks of the era had flats built around narrow, dark corridors, Park Hill's flats had interlinked street decks, communal areas running along each story where children could play and families socialize. The decks were as broad as real streets and wide enough for a milk float to pass along. The blocks of flats themselves were connected by walkways, and their height varied from 4 stories to 13 in order to maintain a roofline that remained level across the development. Motivated by a deep social commitment, Jack Lynn and his colleagues did everything they could to ensure that the new residents felt at home in their new environment. Cobblestones from the old terrace streets surrounded the flats and paved the pathways down the hill to Sheffield Station. Brick infill panels were made of the same material as the houses they replaced, and the flats all had traditional front doorsteps. Each floor was given an old street name and neighbors were rehoused together. A survey of residents conducted by the housing department a year after the flats had been officially opened was overwhelmingly positive, and awards were heaped on the designers. When one looks out from some part of it and sees another of its limbs swinging across the view, enthused the architectural critic Rainer Banham, the effect is like that of suddenly realizing that the railway lines on the other side of some valley in Switzerland are the same that one's own train has just traversed a few moments before. The vision of Park Hill as a living community also seemed justified. Of the walkways, Banham wrote, "Toddlers play on them, teens mend bikes and swap gossip, and grannies stand at their doors." But Park Hill did not age as well as its admirers hoped. The concrete in which it was built proved less suited to the damp climate of Sheffield than the dry heat of the south of France, and as the years passed it became damaged. By the 1970s problems were accumulating. Cockroaches invaded the estate and a series of violent attacks led to headlines in the papers. In the 1980s, as unemployment soared, social problems multiplied. There were burnt-out cars, boarded-up shops, rubbish, and graffiti. The council was accused of dumping problem families there, while the streets in the sky proved an ideal place for gangs to hide from police. Delivery men found that they often had to dodge milk bottles and other missiles, while older inhabitants who had once chatted and gossiped with their neighbors began locking their doors. The cost of refurbishing the flats and of maintenance was also getting too high as councils struggled to deal with the many problems. By the 1980s, Park Hill had come to be regarded as a dangerous no-go area, an embarrassing blot on the face of the city.
The successes and failures of the Doble brothers and their steam cars. When primitive automobiles first began to appear in the 1800s, their engines were based on steam power. Steam had already enjoyed a long and successful career in the railways, so it was only natural that the technology evolved into a miniaturized version which was separate from the trains. But these early cars inherited steam's weaknesses along with its strengths. The boilers had to be lit by hand, and they required about 20 minutes to build up pressure before they could be driven. Furthermore, their water reservoirs only lasted for about 30 miles before needing replenishment. Despite such shortcomings, these newly designed self-propelled carriages offered quick transportation, and by the early 1900s it was not uncommon to see such machines shuttling wealthy citizens around town. But the glory days of steam cars were few. A new technology called the internal combustion engine soon appeared, which offered the ability to drive down the road just moments after starting up. At first, these noisy gasoline cars were unpopular because they were more complicated to operate and they had difficult hand crank starters, which were known to break arms when the engines backfired. But in 1912 General Motors introduced the electric starter, and over the following few years steam power was gradually phased out. Even as the market was declining, Four brothers made one last effort to rekindle the technology. Between 1906 and 1909, while still attending high school, Abner Doble and his 3 brothers built their first steam car in their parents' basement. It comprised parts taken from a wrecked early steam car, but reconfigured to drive an engine of their own design. Though it did not run well, the Doble brothers went on to build a second and third prototype in the following years. Though the Doble boys' third prototype, nicknamed the Model B, still lacked the convenience of an internal combustion engine, it drew the attention of automobile trade magazines due to its numerous improvements over previous steam cars. The Model B proved to be superior to gasoline automobiles in many ways. Its high-pressure steam drove the engine pistons in virtual silence, in contrast to clattering gas engines which emitted the aroma of burned hydrocarbons. Perhaps most impressively, the Model B was amazingly swift. It could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 15 seconds, a feat described as remarkable acceleration by Automobile magazine in 1914. The following year Abner Doble drove the Model B from Massachusetts to Detroit in order to seek investment in his automobile design, which he used to open the General Engineering Company. He and his brothers immediately began working on the Model C, which was intended to expand upon the innovations of the Model B. The brothers added features such as a key-based ignition in the cabin, eliminating the need for the operator to manually ignite the boiler. With these enhancements, the Doble's new car company promised a steam vehicle which would provide all of the convenience of a gasoline car, but with much greater speed, much simpler driving controls, and a virtually silent power plant. By the following April, the General Engineering Company had received 5,390 deposits for Doble Detroits, which were scheduled for delivery in early 1918. Later that year Abner Doble delivered unhappy news to those eagerly awaiting the delivery of their modem new cars. Those buyers who received the handful of completed cars complained that the vehicles were sluggish and erratic, sometimes going in reverse when they should go forward. The new engine design, though innovative, was still plagued with serious glitches. The brothers made one final attempt to produce a viable steam automobile. In early 1924, the Doble brothers shipped a Model E to New York City to be road tested by the Automobile Club of America. After sitting overnight in freezing temperatures, the car was pushed out into the road and left to sit for over an hour in the frosty morning air. At the turn of the key, the boiler lit and reached its operating pressure inside of 40 seconds. As they drove the test vehicle further, they found that its evenly distributed weight lent it surprisingly good handling, even though it was so heavy. As the new Doble steamer was further developed and tested, its maximum speed was pushed to over 100 miles per hour, and it achieved about 15 miles per gallon of kerosene with negligible emissions. Sadly, the Doble's brilliant steam car never was a financial success. Priced at around $18,000 in 1924, it was popular only among the very wealthy. Plus, it is said that no two Model Es were quite the same, because Abner Doble tinkered endlessly with the design. By the time the company folded in 1931, fewer than 50 of the amazing Model E steam cars had been produced. For his whole career, until his death in 1961, Abner Doble remained adamant that steam-powered automobiles were at least equal to gasoline cars, if not superior. Given the evidence, he may have been right. Many of the Model E Dobles which have survived are still in good working condition, some having been driven over 500,000 miles with only normal maintenance. Astonishingly, an unmodified Doble Model E runs clean enough to pass the emissions laws in California today, and they are pretty strict. It is true that the technology poses some difficult problems, but you cannot help but wonder how efficient a steam car might be with the benefit of modem materials and computers. Under the current pressure to improve automotive performance and reduce emissions, it is not unthinkable that the steam car may rise again.
Workplace health and safety considerations for plumbers. Like many trades, plumbing can be a dangerous job. It is important to take all reasonably practicable measure to keep customers and yourself incident and injury free. Biohazard waste. Plumbers regularly come into contact with biohazard waste. It's the nature of the job, but that doesn't mean you should be complacent about it. According to Safe Work Australia, communicable diseases from work-related exposures to biological hazards such as sewage have been estimated to cause 320,000 deaths across the globe each year. In addition to this, plumbers are regularly exposed to other biohazards such as mold, bacteria, and algae. Don't risk it, make sure appropriate clothing and equipment is used. Confined spaces. Plumbers may spend much of their time working in confined spaces, where they are at risk from contaminants, including airborne gases, vapors and dusts, that may cause injury from fire or explosion. They may also be exposed to high concentration of airborne contaminants that may be harmful to health. For example, one plumber was fined $220,000 after an employee suffered from carbon monoxide poisoning. Another potential hazard for plumbers in confined spaces is that of drowning, if water sources are not adequately cut off. The Safe Work Australia Confined Spaces Code of Practice outlines the necessary steps and precautions for avoiding illness and injury. Electricity. The Master Plumbers Association calls electricity plumbing's hidden killer. Metal pipes are often conductive, and so gloves which provide insulation should form part of a plumber's toolkit, as should a plumbing voltage monitor and a volt tester. Gloves should be checked prior to every use and replaced every 12 to 14 months. Electrical equipment like bridging conductors should be regularly checked, with appropriate tags on the equipment to verify its safety. The project should be stopped immediately if there is any sign of electricity, so that the power can be disconnected by a qualified electrician prior to continuing work.
How to manage flexible working with your employees. There is no denying that flexible working has grown enormously in recent years. It does, however, require careful management. When it comes to implementing flexible working, one word is key: trust. All flexible workers should be trusted and given well-defined objectives from the start, and their contribution should be assessed according to their output, as opposed to the time they spend on the job. It can be a big step to implement such as change in your business, so if you are slightly cautious, then I recommend perhaps setting up an end-of-the-day review to see how much progress has been made. As all parties find their feet with the new setup, this contact can slowly be reduced. In my eyes, it is also vital that there is shared calendar access for everyone so that people can see where their colleagues are each day. This way, if they need to catch up with someone, they can plan when to do so. Technology now exists to enable employees to stay in touch with other members of staff and external partners. Meet, for example, is a tool which allows all forms of collaboration for remote working, from video conferencing, live chat and file sharing to screen sharing. The new breed of worker is therefore fully equipped to work productively away from the office, and can still feel like they're in the same room as others when necessary. In my experience, employees are often more productive working at home, as they can work the exact hours they want and do not have to cope with distraction caused by other employees. Being outside the confines of the office walls also appears to foster creativity. In addition, we find staff are more motivated as they have a better work-life balance. In terms of the business, we find this helps with top talent recruitment and staff retention, and a happy workforce is a more successful one.
Eco-escapes, cycling holidays. Section A. Are you worried about the amount of pollution you cause when you go away on holiday? Both public transport and cars can cause real damage to places that lots of tourists visit, and some people think that this is wrong. Many British people fly to seaside resorts in places like Spain and greed what are called package holidays, which can leave quite a big carbon footprint. That's why more and more people are choosing a different type of holiday. Cycling holidays are much greener holidays by car, train or plane, and you get lots of good exercise as well. So, as well as having a break and seeing different places, you can keep fit too. Section B. There are different ways of going on a cycling holiday. Of course, there is nothing to stop you go on your own if you want, but often groups of people travel together and plan a route in advance, which may be more fun. Or you may prefer to book a holiday that has been put together by a company which makes all the arrangements in advance, so that you have no worries. On this type of holiday, you also have the chance to make friends with other people who are on the same trip. Section C. And there are different types of cycling holiday on offer. Serious cyclists sometimes want to travel a long distance every day, because for them the joy of cycling at speed is part of the fun of the holiday. Other people are more interested in seeing the scenery and exploring the places they pass through, and so they are happy to travel more slowly. It's up to you what distance you want every day, and most holiday companies offer a range of possibilities to suit the needs of different types of people. Section D. Many people who go on cycling holidays use a bicycle regularly and choose this type of holiday because they know that they enjoy cycling. So what about if you have never cycled, or if you haven't been on a bike since you were a young child? It's a good idea to do some training before your holiday, especially if you are new to cycling or out of practice. It isn't necessary to be very strong to ride a bike, but you should be in good health. Cycling in Scotland, for instance, where there are lots of hills, will give you a good physical workout. But if that sounds too much like hard work, choose an area like East Anglia where the landscape is mostly flat. Section E. There are also a range of options when it comes to how long to stay away and how to make sure you have a bed for the night. Some people prefer what's known as a center-based holiday, for example, where you return to the same hotel every evening and can have a good meal and a shower. Other people prefer to follow a continuous route, so that they sleep in a different place each night, sometimes carrying a tent with them so that they can go camping. Section F. Clearly, it is not practical to cycle with lots of luggage. Holiday companies sometimes arrange for your suitcases to be sent on to your next destination, so that they're there waiting for you when you arrive in the evening. This means that you only need to carry a few things with you every day. Some different types of clothing are a good idea in case the weather changes suddenly, and a good map and an emergency repair kit for your bike are essential. Section G. How much your holiday costs will depend on which type you choose. If you want to explore another country or another continent, like Africa or Australia, then you have to travel there before you can start cycling, and that can be expensive. However, camping can be a way of keeping accommodation costs down. But, generally speaking, you will find there is a cycling holiday to suit every pocket. Self-study tips and study center course. A. However difficult you find it to arrange your time, it will pay off in the long run if you set aside a certain part of the day for studying, and stick to it. It is best to make a weekly allocation of your time, making sure that you have enough left for recreational activities or simply to be, with, yourself, reading a novel or watching a television program. B. As part of your weekly schedule, it is also advisable to consider exactly what you have to do in that week, and make sure that you tackle the most significant tasks first, leaving the easier or less urgent areas of your work until later. C. On a physical level, make sure that you have an area or space for studying. Don't do it just anywhere. If you always study in the same place, preferably a room of your own, you will find it easier to adjust mentally to the activity when you enter that area. You should have everything that you might need at hand. D. Make sure that all the physical equipment that you use, such as a desk, chair, etc., is at a good height for you. If you use a personal computer, there are plenty of guidelines available from the government on posture, angles, lighting and the like. Consult these and avoid the typical student aches and pains. E. If you are doing a long essay or research paper which involves the use of library books or other articles, it helps to keep details of the titles and authors on small cards in a card box. It is also a good idea to log these alphabetically, so that you can find them easily, rather like keeping telephone numbers. It's all too easy to read something and then forget where it came from. F. Make use of equipment that is available to you. If you find a useful article in the library, it is best to make a copy of the relevant pages before you leave. Then, when you get back to your study, you can mark the article and make any comments that you have in the margin. G. If you are working on a topic your teacher has set, but finding it hard to concentrate, it may be that you actually need to take your mind right off it for a period of time. Airing the mind can work wonders sometimes. After a period away from the task, having not thought about it at all, you may return to it refreshed and full of ideas. H. Similarly, it may help to discuss a topic with other people, especially if you feel that you have insufficient ideas, or too many disorganized ideas. Bring your topic up in conversations at meal times or with other students and see what they have to say. You don't want to copy their ideas, but listening to what they think about something may well help you develop or refine your own thoughts. Study center courses. A. From paragraph to essay. Of particular relevance to students who wish to improve their organizational skills and who feel that their final product is never clear enough. Thursday 10 to 12 Kiran Singh. B. Communicate by mail. Owing to the popularity of last term's course, this is a repeat. Requests for information, notification of personal details and enclosures will be looked at. Please note that this is not a business course. Friday 2 to 4 Seller Rice. C. Source material. How do you gather information for a project or paper? A practical course which looks at sources of information and how to use cataloging systems. Monday 10 to 11 Kiran Singh. D. Express Yourself. An advanced course suitable for students who are about to step into organizations where they may have to voice their opinions in various forums. Monday 12 to 2 Dave Parran. E. Media use. Open to all students. This course focuses on the many ways we can profit linguistically from the radio and television. Use of video essential. Group projects form part of course. Tuesday 9/11 Steve Ansell. F. The short story. A venture into the world of popular writers. One story is selected for adaptation into a short play and group performance. Pre-arranged groups welcome. Thursday 11, 1.30 million rupees Owen. G. Court for speeding. Open to all students. Simple eye exercises to help you skim and scan. How to be selective on the page. Using headings, topic sentences and paragraphs for easy access. Wednesday 11-1 million rupees Owen. H. Quote me if you must. The do's and don'ts of using source material. How to incorporate it into your own work in an acceptable way. How not to plagiarize other people's articles, books, etc. Tuesday 9, 10.30 Drive. Johnson. I. The job for me. Finding it, applying for it and getting it. Where can it all go wrong? Written and oral course with simulation exercises using authentic newspaper advertisements. Friday 10, 11.30 Fabe Al Hussein. J. Can I help you? Practical course for students who wish to improve their telephone skills. Breaks the ice for newcomers. No written skills required. Wednesday 3 to 5 Mike Vass. K. The customer is always right. An interesting angle. How do you reply to letters from customers? What tone is best and when? How do you achieve results? Wednesday 11 to 1 Seller Rice. L. Tense about tenses. For those who worry about their individual words, a look at tenses and other aspects of the language through poetry and song. Good voice helps but not essential. Saturday 10 to 12 Steve Ansell. Mountain biking. Canada is calling. Experience the best summer adventure ever. 12 mountain biking adventures throughout Canada. At Zenith Biking we have been exceeding mountain bikers' expectations since our founding in 1988 in Ottawa, Canada. Over the years we have expanded our operations to cover OTH Canadian cities including Montreal and Toronto. Currently, with a base of over 100 experienced staff, we are your first choice for mountain biking. For the past 5 years our international network, comprising offices in 4 continents, have been organizing Canadian mountain biking adventures for bikers around the world. An average of 3,000 clients enjoy an unforgettable biking experience throughout Canada. Should you be interested in extending your adventure to other countries, our extensive inter-country Zenith network can organize additional connections for you. Obtaining a visa for entry into some countries can be a time-consuming and frustrating process. However, at Zenith, our experienced team will assist you in obtaining your visa least amount of time. At Zenith we have our own accommodation facilities for bikers, in Ottawa and Toronto. Accommodation fees are reasonable and depend on the size and the location of the room chosen. The most economical option is our 8-bed dorms. Summer Experience, 2012, fees for this adventure include return air ticket from London to Toronto, excluding onward travel in Canada, biker's kit, consisting of apparel, headgear and energy food. Direct transfer to meet and greet camp from airport. Biker's workshop for beginners to advanced by our experienced staff. Extensive directory of Canadian hills and mountains. Zenith Biking 24-hour help and support phone service. 24-hour emergency medical assistance. Eligibility: participants must be at least 18 years old. Be in excellent physical condition. Have at least a basic level of mountain biking competence. Be excited about the experience of a lifetime. Join the Zenith Bikers Forum, ZBF. Once you book with us for any biking experience, you will automatically become a member of the Zenith Bikers Forum, ZBF. Based on the many requests we received from our clients, we formally launched the ZBF 3 years ago. On the ZBF you can ask and have answered any biking-related questions you may have. Our website also has a chat room. You are encouraged to submit your ideas, questions and suggestions, and they will be quickly answered by past clients and staff. Classified ads, a useful job-seeking resource. In their search for employment, increasing numbers of job seekers are once again turning to the help-wanted classified ads in their local newspapers. For some time this popular resource slumped as the heavily trafficked internet job sites became widely regarded as offering greater numbers of employment opportunities. In many cases, this is a valid assumption. A local newspaper focuses on positions vacant in a specific town or region, whereas the online job site will typically contain advertisements for the whole country and possibly even overseas. If you are seeking work in your neighborhood, and do not wish to drive a long distance or move, the local, classified ads in your newspaper may be a viable option. Recent canvassing has revealed that some local and regional employers don't always post their position vacant ads on the major websites. Many prefer to advertise closer to home and to hire locally in order to avoid having to pay relocation costs. Often it is not necessary to purchase the newspapers, as these publications are widely available in libraries, coffee shops and even some waiting rooms. In addition, Online newspaper editions, which contain the help wanted ads, are now widely available and have contributed to the popularity of this form of advertising. These ads are usually searchable by date, category, keyword and location, making them competitive with the larger career and employment agencies found on the internet. Whether you apply for a job through a large, online employment agency or via a classified ad in a newspaper, the same strategy is valid. First of all, read the ad carefully and do your best to answer the following questions. Am I the type of person the employer is looking for? Do I have the essential skills and experience? With whom would I be working? A group of people, one person, or would I work independently? What other talents and experience can I include in my application? What opportunities and experiences might be available in this position that would be advantageous to my career? Do I have the skills to negotiate the challenges and problems of the position? For example, working with much older employees or a woman working in an office full of men. Importantly, try to find a way to stand out from the other applicants. Remember, whether you are responding to a position's vacant advertisement from an internet agency or a newspaper, your goal is to secure the interview before you stand a chance of being hired for the job. Planning a gap year. The best reason to take a gap year between school and work or higher education is to improve your CV with experience overseas. This is why some school leavers in Britain now consider a year out to be essential. Many want to travel, with Sydney the favorite destination. Shooting Star is an organization that helps school leavers by offering training followed by appropriate employment. We at Shooting Star offer much more than a trip abroad. At Shooting Star you acquire skills that lead to interesting jobs both for your gap year and future holidays. Magazines are full of wanted adverts for washing up in a restaurant. Well, we don't do that. It's not our idea of excitement. We offer school leavers the chance for outdoor adventure, to teach things like sailing and snowboarding. No choice, really. In your year out you train, travel and work. You can combine work with pleasure and reap the rewards. You could become an experienced yacht skipper or instructor, and many people go on to spend their future holidays being paid to enjoy their favorite sport. Australians and New Zealanders travel to Europe and North America in large numbers to gain overseas experience. Those who qualify with Shooting Star are very soon using their skills in jobs they could only dream about before, working outdoors and seeing more of the world. Wherever you come from, a gap year with Shooting Star means professional training and international adventure. Top tips for a successful gap year. Design your gap year in outline before applying for a permanent job or a college place. Human resources officers or admissions tutors will be impressed by a thought-out plan. What's more important to you, travel or work experience? You can be flexible with travel plans, but you must research job opportunities in advance. Go to our website and click on recruitment for ideas. Who do you know who has taken a gap year before? Shooting Star can put you in touch with someone who has just completed one. Sort out the admin in plenty of time, air tickets, visas, insurance and medical matters such as vaccinations for some destinations. These are your responsibility. Who is in charge of your affairs while you are away? There will be forms to fill and letters to answer. Allow plenty of time to settle back home on your return, and don't be surprised if it takes some time to readjust to everyday life. Succeeding at interviews. A. Getting invited to an interview means you have passed the first hurdle. Your application must have made a good impression. Now you need to prepare yourself for the interview to make sure you make the most of this opportunity. There are a number of things you can do. B. Firstly, you can do some research. Find out about the employer and the job, ask for an information pack or speak to people you know who work for the company. Try to plan for the interview by asking who will be interviewing you and whether there will be a test to take. C. Prepare for questions you might be asked. Some common ones are the reason why you want the job, whether you have done this kind of work before, what your strengths and weaknesses are, and which leisure pursuits you enjoy. D. Another important point is never to run the risk of arriving late. For example, consider making a dummy run in advance to see how long the journey will take. Check out public transport or, if you are going by car, the nearest parking. Aim to arrive about 10 minutes before the interview is due to start. E. It is also crucial to give plenty of thought to what you are going to wear. This will depend on the job you are going for. There is no need to buy a new outfit, but aim to look neat and tidy. Remember, if you look good it will help you feel good. F. You need to make a good impression. Interviews can vary from a relatively informal, one-to-one, chat to a very formal panel situation. Whatever the circumstances, you will give yourself an advantage by being friendly and polite, by making eye contact with the interviewer, and by selling yourself by focusing on your strengths. G. There are also things you should avoid doing at your interview. First of all, don't exaggerate. For example, if you don't have the exact experience the employer is looking for, say so and explain you are willing to learn. Don't simply give yes and no answers, but answer questions as fully as you can. And lastly, don't forget to ask questions as well as answering them. H. One final thing to remember: it is important to show good team spirit, that you possess good people skills, and that you are friendly and approachable. Finally, remember to be enthusiastic and show that you can be flexible. The benefits of having a business mentor. Introduction. If you're starting your own business, you probably need a mentor. This is a business person who volunteers to give their time to help somebody else with their work, particularly somebody who is new to the business. They have a wealth of experience they are willing to share, perhaps from setting up and running their own company. The mentor's role is to support, develop, stimulate and challenge. However, business mentors won't solve your problems for you or tell you what to do. They will talk things over with you, rather than acting as consultants. Many people, while setting up their first business, have found that a mentor can have a very positive effect on its success. Why business mentoring is important. If you have a gap in your knowledge or experience, then mentoring could work very well for you. For example, you may have a great concept for a business, but need a bit of assistance to turn it into a successful venture. A mentor can provide you with a number of benefits, such as guidance on developing and improving your business, help with decisions, particularly difficult ones, ideas for new products or services, or for working practices that will improve your efficiency, tips for your business that are gained from practical experience, access to a network of contacts with other business people. A business mentor can also help you to develop key business skills, improve your problem-solving abilities, build confidence, work on your personal development. Face-to-face business mentoring. If you decide that face-to-face business mentoring is right for you, mentor and mentee should decide in advance on the nature of the relationship. You will need to agree on the degree of involvement that suits you both. Some mentors and mentees work extremely closely, keeping in touch with each other most weeks or even most days. In the majority of cases, however, a mentor will provide help every few weeks or months. In either case, they might meet, speak on the phone, or exchange emails. You should also agree on a level of structure to suit you both. Mentoring can be a very formal process with regular meetings which follow a specific agenda and work towards a specific set of goals. It can also be quite a casual arrangement, where the mentee calls on the mentor as and when problems or questions arise. A planning process for middle-sized projects. Any business project, such as reducing energy costs or improving efficiency, needs to be planned, and time spent planning will save far more time later on. The typical stages in this planning process are explained below. Your first task is to spot what needs to be done. Examine your firm's current position, perhaps making a formal analysis of its strengths and weaknesses. Then think about how you might improve that position. What opportunities are there for achieving this? The next step is to decide precisely what the aim of your plan is. This is best expressed in a simple single sentence, to ensure that it is clear and sharp in your mind. Doing this helps you to avoid wasting effort on irrelevant side issues. Next, you should work out how to do it. It is tempting just to grasp the first idea that comes to mind, but it is better to consider a wide range of options. This way, you may come up with less obvious but better solutions. Once you have explored the options available to you, the selection of which option to use is the next step. If you have the time and resources, you might decide to evaluate all options, carrying out some planning, such as costing, for each. Normally you will not have this luxury. You already have a broad idea of what your project will consist of. Now is the time to work out the full details, identifying the most efficient and effective method of carrying it out, including answering the questions of who, what, and when. The next stage is to review your plan and decide whether it will work satisfactorily. This evaluation enables you to change to another option that might be more successful, or to accept that no plan is needed. Once you have finished your plan and decided that it will work satisfactorily, it is time for implementation. Your plan will cover how this is to be done. Once you have achieved a plan, you can close the project. At this point, it is often worth assessing the project to see whether there are any lessons that you can learn.